again, I am Tom and this is Real Six String. What we're going to be doing today is working on a scale and trying to make it as practical as possible. Okay, and we're really going to focus on our timing. The scale we're going to be using is our E minor pentatonic, and the chords are going to be E, G, A, E. As we move through, we're going to be adding our scale in section by section and then the chords when they're applicable. But all the way along, it's really important that we focus on our timing. So spend as long as you need on each of these sections, which means maybe pause the video, just work on each section until it starts to work its way into your muscle memory. Come back after some practice, do whatever you need to do to make sure that as you work through, you're still following the timing and you're still making it even. And that being said, let's get started. First thing to understand is that usually if we're using our E minor pentatonic scale, we want to be using E minor chord and the chords that go along with it. Whereas here, we're going to be doing things a little bit differently. Personally, I think it's a lot easier to get started with, as it turns it a little bit more bluesy and makes the key that we're working in a little more ambiguous. So it means that you've got a few more options and none of the notes that you play are going to sound wrong. And that is the beauty of our pentatonic scales. So they're a great framework to get started with when it comes to playing lead lines, but also what they are is just the normal major or minor scale that they're taken from, but they take out two of the notes that are more likely to clash. So it means that it's going to sound much more musical, and it's a great way to get started. And then once you're comfortable with those, all you've got to do is learn where the other two notes are, depending on the scale you're trying to play, and you've ended up with a major scale, a minor scale, or a different mode, depending on what you're looking for. For those that know the minor pentatonic already, you've got a bit of a boost as you're going to know the positions and your fingers are going to know where they need to go. But if not, it's quite an easy one to practice. There's only two notes per string, and it's a really simple one depending on whether you're going from the open string to the third fret or the open string to the second fret. I've got another video out on pentatonic scales and how to practice them depending on what you hope to get out of them. But this one is a little bit different. What we're focusing on here is our timing. So what that means is that it's really common when getting started to do the bits that you know really quickly and then take a while to do the changes. Okay, so for this, it's really easy to do the strumming part really quickly and then leave a really big gap while you move to the next bit and play the lead bit and play it as quick as you can. And then there's a big gap to move back to the next bit. But what I'm hoping to do is play everything in time. So you can take time to build up to your muscle memory, but the end goal is to just play it all slowly. And to keep it moving. The format we're going to be using for this entire lesson is just to do two strums on whichever chord it is. Initially, it's just going to be an E. So that's beats 1, 2. So it's just 1, 2. And then 3 and 4 and is going to be the rhythm of our lead part. Okay, so for this, for the first one, we're just going to have the third fret on the first string, to the open first string, then to the third fret on your second string, and to the open second string as well. So that's just going to be 3 and 4 and. And if I put it all together slowly, it's going to be 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, and so on and so forth. It's really important after you play the lead part that you're moving back to the chord, because it'll allow you to loop it and keep the timing. I recommend that you use your ring finger for all the third frets in this scale and your middle finger for all the second frets. So as you're playing through it, you don't have to move your whole hand around to get to the different frets. The next section that we're going to cover is just going to be the 2-0-2-0. So very similar pattern, but on the middle two strings. So that starts off second fret of your third string, then to the open third string, onto the 2nd fret of your 4th string, and then to the open 4th string as well. And if we put all of that into the timing with our chord, we're just going to do the 2 strums on E that surround it. So 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and okay, and back to the E to finish. And once you're comfortable with both of those positions, we're just going to add on the final one. So what that's going to mean is the 2nd fret on your 5th string to the open 5th string, and then the 3rd fret on your 6th string, and then to the open 6th string. Okay, and I have a little practice through all 3 of those. 3, 4. And return to the E to finish. Once you're used to being able to loop it and move a couple of times around all of the different positions, try and add in the timing. So try and really make sure that you're adding in the metronome or you're adding in a drum track to keep everything moving, all right? So that is a great stepping stone to get used to. And after all that, what we're going to try and do is potentially the most important part about all of it. Is that you have to engage with it and you have to try and find something that you like the sound of. So any of these notes that we've been using work anywhere. With any of the chords we're doing, with any of these parts, any of these sections, any of these notes will work. All we've got to do is try and change the order of the notes we're playing. So what that's going to mean, for the example I'm going to give you, we're going to start off on the 3rd fret of your 1st string. Then we go to the open 1st string, much as we did before. And same with the next one, to the 3rd fret and the 2nd string. But the last note we're going to do is to play the open 1st string again. Okay, so that just creates a little bit more interest. To give you an example, we can play over just the 2 of those, the initial example on those 2 strings, and then the new one. And it mixes things up just enough to keep it interesting. So it's... And as you keep moving around, there's endless different ways to play all of these sections. The other example I'm going to give is to play the entire first one we went over, but upside down. So for this one, you're starting off on the open 2nd string, going up to the 3rd fret, and then up to the open 1st string, and then up to the 3rd fret on there as well. So that would just be... and so on and so forth. The final way to see it is just to start adding in extra chords. So as I said, we're going to follow the chord progression of E, G, A, E. We're going to do exactly that. Try and mix up the sections and mix up the chords. So the E, G, A, and E are just going to be beats 1 and 2 of every bar. And then we're going to choose a different lead line to play over each of them. But once again, the most important thing is to mix them up, change the directions, change the ways you play them, and try and connect with it yourself. Because you'll end up with a much deeper knowledge of it if you spend some time on it than if I were to write out every possible example and you just play through them. And a quick example of running through all of the different chords is just going to be 3, 4. Okay, so try and remember as you run around that what you want to have is the E at the end and the beginning. So it means once you've played the E at the end, it's really easy to forget the one at the beginning and move back to just E, G and A, but then you've only got a 3-bar sequence. So to keep it really straightforward, you want to make sure that you've got the 4 bars and you've got that timing in there. The next part of this is just to blur the lines. So what we've learned is to play strings 1 and 2 because they're both 3-0, and then learnt to do strings 3 and 4 because they're both 2-0, and so on and so forth. It's a little bit easier to break down into those sections, but you don't have to stick to them. You can cross over between those as much as you like. So I recommend also practicing it if you're doing the 3 zeros. And then, for instance, then do the 3-0 on the second string, and then the 2-0 on the third string. And then you slot back into the 2-0, 2-0 on the third and fourth. And then blur the 4th and 5th strings. And then, of course, we're just back to the 5th and 6th strings we're used to. So that's going to help you to break out of just being able to see these 2 strings as a unit and these 2 strings as a unit, and allow you to start using much more of the scale however you want to use it. For your own practice, the main thing I recommend is that you find a tempo of a drum track that suits you. There's thousands of them for free on YouTube. You can use whatever you like, but try and find a slower tempo. If you're playing really quickly, you may not be able to notice if your timing isn't quite right. Whereas if you start really slow and build up, you can be much, much more assured that what you're playing is definitely right. And on top of building your sense of timing, you can also use a variety of different chords. So I've used a much more bluesy route of the E major chord here, but you can also use any of the notes, any of the chords that work within E minor. So that can mean E minor into a C, into a G, and then with a D, and then E minor. So those are the chords for Zombie, but they're all E minor chords, so you can fit them in with any of the patterns we've used. Another example would be to use an E minor into a D, into a C, and then a D again to finish. And to finish off there. So you can go for the E minor chords, you can go for E major chords. You've got a lot of options to play around with this, but focusing on timing as you move through it. So that is our entire lesson for today. Thank you very much for watching. As always, I had an amazing time making the video. It's allowed me to see things very differently. This is a lesson I've been working on with a lot of my students. So to be able to see it differently and to be able to make a video out of it has been very interesting. If you need any extra help, feel free to let me know. And if you want the sheet sent through that I've typed up to make sure that you've got all of the examples and all of the clear-cut steps, if that's how you learn, let me know as well. But otherwise, happy practicing, very best of luck with it, and I'll speak to you in the next one.